listening to the Legal Insight Podcast by HHQ, where we help you unpack the world of law, business, tech, and more. Now, this is season 2, and we're diving into episode 18. In our previous episode, we actually discussed the crucial appointment of data protection officers in Malaysia under the Personal Data Protection Amendment Act 2024. Now, if you haven't had a chance to listen to part 1 of this episode, we strongly advise you to do so as it covers a mandatory requirement. Now, we also delved into the criteria for appointing a DPO and our technology practice group's DPO outsourcing services. Now, go back to listen to it if you've not done so already. Now, today we're continuing with another extremely crucial aspect of the Amendment Act, right? This is something the Technology Practice Group has extensive real-world experience which is the data breach notification under the new guidelines. Now, I'm your host, Zach, the Business Development Director at HHQ, and I'm thrilled to be joined by Ong Johnson, once again, the Head of Technology Practice Group, and Khai, the co-head of Technology Practice Group. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good to see you, Zach.
Thanks, Zach.
Now, let's dive right in. Khai, what are your initial thoughts on the data breach notification requirements introduced by the PDP Amendment Act 2024? Now, since its introduction, we've seen a range of feedbacks and perspectives, and it seems many organizations are still in the dark about this new requirement.
Yeah. So definitely my first thought was that, finally. Well, we've heard about this amendment to the Personal Data Protection Act, I think since 3-4 years ago or even earlier, right? And there have been a lot of talks even since back then that we want to equip our data protection law with data portability and also data breach notification requirements. And now finally we are here. But of course, I do think that this is a step in the right directions, right? Again, in our earlier episode, we spoke about, or rather I said that data is the new oil, and there have been increased awareness in data subjects of their rights, and also increased awareness on how important our personal data, how valuable they actually are, right? Yep. So essentially, with these data breach notification requirements, it forces companies that handles a lot of personal data to really pay closer attention to how they process the personal data that they have and be really responsible about it. While, of course, there are still a lot of companies that, in a sense, I won't say that they are caught by surprise, but rather, I think a lot of companies are still not fully prepared for it. They don't really have the necessary incident response plan. They don't really know what to do. There's still not a data breach notification policy per se, right? So now that the law is here, I think that it is the right move by our government. But now the question is, how should and how can companies react to it and be prepared for this new change?
Thanks, Khai. Now, Johnson, you've dealt with PDP Commission. You have dealt with data breaches. You have dealt with actual cyber incidents, in your career. Now, there's a word on the street that says, all personal data breaches must now be actually notified to the commissioner. Now, what's your view on this? Is it accurate? Is the word on the street just a rumor?
Yes, Zach, I think that you're spot on. It is just a rumor. So what happened is, according to the latest guideline and the circular that had just been released some weeks ago, not every single personal data breach would need to be notified with the commissioner. So according to the guideline, only personal data breach that would actually cause or is likely to cause significant harm would meet these notification requirements. So what are the examples of significant harm? So according to the guideline, there are actually a list of examples. So let me just point out 3 which I think will be the most relevant. So number 1 is where the compromised personal data may actually result in physical harm. Number 2 is where it's going to result in financial loss. Number 3 is where the compromised personal data may actually be misused for illegal purposes. So in order for company to actually assess, look, right now, I actually suffer personal data breach. Because the personal data breach, like or not, it goes by the severity. So not all personal data breach should be treated as equal. So in order for you to actually notify the PDP commissioner, you should first assess whether the personal data breach is likely to cause significant harm. So I would say that most of the companies, when there's a data breach, the first thing is advisable for them to do is to immediately reach out to a law firm. For the law firm to immediately assess whether the data breach is significant enough to actually meet the notification requirement? If the answer is no, then I would say that look, it's actually okay for you not to notify, but it is always a good practice if the company want to notify. It has no downside to it.
Right. Now, Khai, what's your take on this significant harm threshold? Like, there's a general sense that it's still quite a low threshold. I mean, Johnson mentioned, physical harm is big, but financial loss and also
Misuse,
potential misuse for legal purposes, like it feels quite low.
Honestly, I wouldn't use the word low to describe it. I think the right word should be it's broad. Significant harm and the examples given in the guidelines on data breach notification is really, really broad. And again, I think that is the intention, right? if the definition of significant harm or what constitutes significant harm is drafted unnecessarily restricted or limited, then it really defeats the purpose. At the end of the day, Johnson has made it very, very clear. As long as the data breach would cause, or rather there is a risk that it will cause financial loss, identity theft, for example, then it should be taken seriously. The company should definitely notify, and there is indeed a right for our regulator, the Personal Data Protection Commissioner, to know of these data breach, so that appropriate steps can be taken to prevent, again, actual harm from happening.
Now, Johnson, can you give us a high-level overview of a notification timeline in the event of a data breach, and what are the practical steps organizations can actually take? Including what should a DPO do? What's a DPO's role in this data breach incident?
Yes, Zach. So according to the guideline and according to the circular, so in the event of a data breach incident where it actually carries significant harm, which require notifications, so the guideline make it very clear. There's a 72 hours window from the occurrence of the data breach. Then the company, the organization, would need to notify PDP commissioner. And in the whole data breach incident, I would say the DPO is playing a very important role. So do listen to our previous episodes. So in the event where the company is mandatory to actually appoint a DPO, then in that case, DPO will carry out a very significant role, because DPO will be the key person notifying the PDP commissioner throughout the whole process, and most importantly, throughout the whole incident response, the incident recovery, or even the potential of actually dealing directly with the threat actors. The DPO is likely to be the key person holding the fort, the key person communicating, making the decisions, or even liaising with all the stakeholders. So I would say that the practical step is to ensure the DPO is well versed towards what to do. Because 72 hours is technically 3 days, but based on our experience,
Assuming you don't sleep.
Correct, assuming you don't sleep, and then 72 hours during a cyber incident, it is not sufficient, because within the first day, most likely everyone is in a panic attack. They have no idea what has happened. Then the second day, potentially they are contacting the cyber insurance. Then they actually call in the cyber incident company, the cybersecurity company, to come in to investigate. Then within the third day, you have to make a decision. Would you need to notify or not? So I would say that for the DPO that's inexperienced, or DPO that's not familiar with data privacy law, or not familiar with incident response, they will be clueless, and it's likely that the DPO may actually miss the deadline.
Wow. So it's a short window.
Yep.
So Khai, based on your real world experience with data breaches, cyber incidents, what are the immediate actions that companies should take in that 72-hour window besides the notification process itself?
Yeah. So, of course, I think the first step after you have dealt with all the panic, right? Ideally, there should be none. Of course, first step is to contain. Containment is always the first step. So how do you contain the data breach? It boils down to whether it is an external action or it is an internal action. Data breach, again, I think something that a lot of people don't remember is that data breach can be an insider job as well. It could well be a deliberate action of a disgruntled employee, right? Stealing your customer information and then sell it elsewhere, or disclose it and leak it somewhere else. Or it could also just be a careless action of an employee accidentally sending out an email containing a whole list of your customer information to a third party, right? Who is not supposed to even receive all these informations. So of course, then we have the sort of the worst case scenario of a cyber threat actors that comes into your environment and steal all your information, which also includes personal data, right? So containment really depends on what is the type of breach, what causes the data breach to begin with. Then the steps that you would take to contain would also be different. So containment is number one. Number two, once you have contained it, how do you respond to it in a sense that how do you deal with data subjects? How do you deal with stakeholders? How do you, what do you report? What findings do you report to the data controllers? So I would say that a lot of people would think that to recover from it, to try to get back the personal data, or in the event of a cybersecurity incident, to try to restore and recover whatever information that you have lost, right? A lot of people think that that's step two, but that's actually not advised, because assuming that it's a disgruntled employee stealing your information, or it's a cyber attack, right? You will want to preserve all this evidence, all these data trails, all these logs, all these signatures as much as possible, so that further investigations can be done. So really, containment number one. Number two is looking at how do you deal with and handle and basically address the data subjects and also commissioners or the stakeholders.
Now, Khai, in furtherance to that, in addition to notifying the commissioner, the PDP commissioner, there's also a matter of actually notifying the data subject itself, the people who are affected.
Yes.
Now, how does that actually work? Is it always mandatory, and is it also 72 hours?
Yeah. So I think when it comes to data subjects, dealing with data subjects, notifying them of the breach, the timeline is longer. You actually have 7 days from the time that you notify the commissioner. And it is not every single time that you have to do it. Again, I think the same, not the same, but rather similar assessment will have to be made. Does the data breach, will it cause, or will it likely to cause, again, financial loss to the data subjects? Will these personal data of the data subjects potentially be misused for illegal purposes, or could it be used for identity theft? Those sort of things. So the guidelines essentially will set out a list of assessment that you still have to make. So if any one of those assessments are fulfilled, you will then have to notify the data subjects. And the purpose of that is, of course, so that data subjects can take proactive steps, assuming that their identity is being used for identity theft. They know what to do, right? They know to contact the bank, they know to change their password immediately, and so on and so forth.
Now, Johnson, what are some of the biggest challenges that companies actually face when notifying data subjects? Now, from the discussion earlier, it sounds like there's often a need to actually negotiate with the threat actors, deal with cyber insurance, manage communications with the PDP commissioner, data subjects, board of directors, and the incident response teams. It sounds overwhelming. If it's a job for the DPO himself, right? Now, if companies listening actually recognize the risk and importance of data breach notifications but don't know where to start, what would be your first advice to them?
Our first advice is to appoint the right DPO, because based on our first-hand experience of actually dealing with cyber incidents or otherwise assisting company to actually holding their hand throughout the entire process, we can actually understand how overwhelming and how daunting the whole process is. As you have already pointed out. So for example, in the event of a data breach, the internal team, basically what they want, because potentially they've lost all the data. So what they want is they want recovery so that they are able to actually resume operations. And then at the same time, the system may need to be taken offline in order for them to contain, as mentioned by Khai, to contain the damage and to assess. And at the same time, when the cyber security team come in, they will want to do a digital forensic to actually identify actually what happened and then where is the leakage. And most importantly, to ensure that the threat actors has successfully been removed from the system. And at the same time, the data subjects, they want to know actually what happened to my data and then what is the damage. And the commissioner, you need to notify them. And at the same time, you need to manage the PI as well. Because chances are some of the newspapers, they may be reporting that your company has suffered data breach. So at that moment, the DPO should have a very clear game plan towards what they're supposed to do. So this is why, as mentioned in the previous episode, the DPO is more than just having a strong privacy law knowledge. The DPO itself also should have a clear understanding of the IT integrity. as mentioned by Khai, in the event of data breach, based on our experience, the internal team, the company, the first thing they have to do is to recover it. But it's always not advisable because before recovery, you have to do a digital forensic. You have to actually identify, look through the logs to identify what happened and then what is the root cause. And then recovery is usually the last step, because you want to have a proper protocol. But if the DPO is not experienced, or otherwise if the DPO only understands privacy law, but without a good understanding of the IT system or IT structure, the DPO is not able to assist that. Similarly, if the DPO has a good IT knowledge, but DPO does not have a good stakeholder management skill, the DPO may not know how they're supposed to actually communicate with the data subjects, with the BTP commissioner, including how they're supposed to actually face the public. Because, like it or not, most of the time the company will need to release a PR report, a press statement to explain what has happened in order for them to control a narrative. So I would say that the best advice is appoint a right DPO. DPO is really more than a paper title destination. You would need the right person, or I would say not only the right person. It's almost impossible for you to identify one person. You will need the right company or the right team in order for them to assist your company, especially during a data breach incident.
Wow. I can imagine, CEOs, board of directors, the heads are kind of thinking already like, where can we find such a person or such a team?
If you are listening to our podcast now, you're looking at us. So basically, I think it's important for us to actually emphasize that for our law firm, we are very familiar, especially when it comes to data privacy. And especially both Khai and I, it's safe to say that we actually understand cybersecurity with a good extent. So, and we also offer DPO services. So in the event of a data breach, or if your organization is looking to outsource your DPO services to a law firm, do reach out to us, and then we believe that we are able to assist.
Yep. I can imagine like it would be more of a sound choice, just personally thinking, to outsource the services, because if I appoint a DPO internally, there may not be enough work in a sense.
Yeah, correct.
Like you're probably dealing with one data breach every 2 months or every 6 months.
Yes, correct.
Or once a year. You would be out of practice by the time something actually happens. Rather, a team that actually deals with it on a weekly or daily basis, I think you would be so familiar. You'll be, just on the ball. The laws at your fingertips. Your response will be at your fingertips. So I would imagine outsourcing would be the way to go.
Yes, we also think the same, because eventually the network matters a lot. As mentioned by Khai, there's only 72 hours. So within that 72 hours, you should have all the context. You should have a clear game plan. You should have a clear protocol towards what to do. And most of the time, only experienced team, they're able to carry out this game plan effectively within the prescribed timeline.
Now, Johnson and Khai, that has been incredibly insightful. Thank you both for sharing your experience and your expertise as well. Now, to our listeners, it is clear that data breach notification is a critical aspect of data protection compliance in Malaysia in this day and age. Now, given the Tech Practice Group's unique expertise and experience in this area, particularly with their involvement in actual cybersecurity incidents, many companies are actually already reaching out to them to understand on how to appoint their team as a DPO. So you can do the same as well. Just book a free consultation call. Just get on the line with them. Get some new information on how to appoint a DPO. Now, companies have also reached out for data breach notification assistance, gap compliance analysis, framework development, and even compliance training for boards and organizations. Now, if you'd like to learn more about how HHQ can help your organization navigate these challenges, please don't hesitate to reach out to both this handsome gentleman here. Now, that's all the time we have today. You've been listening to the Legal Insight Podcast by HHQ. Stay tuned for the next episode.